Welcome to Beneath the Surface, the podcast that proudly lives local, with host, realtor, and investor Andy Algreen. And now, time for the show.
What's up, everybody? My name's Andy Algreen, realtor and investor here in Monroe in Central Iowa, and welcome back to another episode of the Beneath the Surface podcast. Today we have on Rodd Vande Wall with SkyQuest Ministries. We'll just kind of start and dig right into it. Rodd, I guess if you just kind of want to give us a little high-level overview of yourself and or what SkyQuest Ministries is and what the organization is about.
I've been in Monroe since 97. Moved here. I was working in Newton, and believe it or not, Monroe had a golf course, and Mitchell Chips told me they had one, so we started looking for a house here. That's how we ended up in Monroe. I've been a part of SkyQuest Outdoor Ministries. Actually started in Monroe back in 2006-ish. There was a pastor in town at the Baptist church. His name was Jack McCullough, and he started an outdoor ministry and asked me if I wanted to tag along and help. So as a ministry, we put on hunting and fishing trips to introduce men to the gospel of Christ or to help them in their walk and point them to walking a godly life.
Cool. So you got started with the organization back in 2006?
Yeah, I was going to that church, okay. And Jack asked me, he was putting on a turkey hunt and asked me if I wanted to go along. And we've been putting on turkey hunts. 2007 was the first one, but okay. We've been putting on events ever since then.
Gotcha. Good deal. Do you guys offer what other programs or activities you guys do other than like turkey hunts?
So they asked me to do this full time a couple years ago. So April 1st would have been my 2-year anniversary of doing this full time. Before that, we just got together as a group of men, basically 2 weeks out of the year, put on a couple turkey hunts, and when I went home, we're all from different parts of the country. But we would just get together wherever we were having those hunts. And then when they asked me to do it full time, our vision was to expand that. So I guess not everybody likes a turkey hunt, but so we started adding some fishing trips. So we do a Lake Michigan salmon fishing trip in August, a Northeast Iowa trout fishing by Decorah. We'll do that in May. We're actually going to do a couple of those this year. And then we've done I went to Texas to lay the groundwork on a hog hunt in January. Those are kind of the ones we've got going so far.
Yeah. Have you done hog hunting before?
I had never hog hunted before, and it was hard.
Yeah. How many guys went?
There was 3 of us, 2 guys from Michigan and then myself.
Okay. And you were unsuccessful?
I was unsuccessful. Okay. All of us were unsuccessful. Okay. It was very, very challenging. You could get close, but yeah. I'd never been to Texas before, and the terrain, and there's bushes and shrubs and cactus all over the place, so yeah. You got to get really close. I was 15 yards to 1, but I couldn't even get a shot because there was too much brush in between us, so That was hard.
Yeah. So then the next hog hunt is in January of 25?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
How do people go about finding out about those events, or how can they sign up for them?
Yeah, so we've got a website, and it's kind of a mouthful, but it's SkyQuestOutdoorMinistries.com. We've been a nonprofit since 2011, 12, somewhere in there. And we kind of launched a website then. So all of our information is on that, and then we try to update that whenever we get events locked in for sure. We usually get on the web and change the dates, and then, my contact information is on there. That's usually the easiest way to get signed up. Most people have tons of questions on what to expect and what to bring, what not to bring, all those oddball questions. People just call me.
Yep. Gotcha. So you've been doing it for 2 years full time. What did you do prior to that?
So I guess most of my adult career, I grew up southeast of Oskaloosa on a hog farm, and I worked in hog confinements growing up, and then kind of went to work in some factories off and on. I ended up at Maytag in Newton, and I was driving 50 miles each way, working odd hours. So I was maybe going to work at 1 o'clock in the morning. Driving from Oskaloosa was pretty challenging. So that's why one of the reasons why we landed in Monroe. Mm-hmm. And then when Maytag decided to close the doors, what do we do now? I've never been a career-minded guy. I'm just kind of a go with the flow type of thing. And my uncle lives in Des Moines, was a sheet metal worker, and came across a company that wanted some parts made, and he asked me if I'd be interested in opening up a weld shop. So in 2005, he started doing the legwork. I was still working at Maytag full time, and I was still taking care of hog buildings on the side, and we opened up a weld shop. So I did both of those jobs from about 5 o'clock in the morning till about 4. And then usually I'd go home and eat, and at 5 o'clock I'd go down to the shop and work till midnight or 1 o'clock and do it all over again. I did that for about 4 months, worked all 3 of them until I just couldn't work that many hours anymore. And
yep.
So then I actually had the weld shop for 17 years in Monroe here.
Okay. Yep. So you found the building was in Monroe.
Yeah. Yep. I rented a building from Carrie Decama, and it didn't have electricity in that side. It didn't have concrete, and Carrie did a fantastic job of helping get that stuff set up so I could get a weld shop going in there. And he was a huge asset to have a local business owner that was really invested in seeing the community grow.
Mm-hmm. So yep, that's awesome. So you were working 18 to 20-hour days almost, kind of what it seems like.
Yeah.
So how has your faith kind of played a factor in your decision making? Maybe like when you just started to think about moving to Monroe, or when did you come to Christ, or what does that kind of journey look like for you?
So I grew up in a Christian home and accepted Christ at a young age, and then I hit my teenage years and kind of went off the rails, and I just started living a life that I wasn't proud of, and God got a hold of my life about 95-ish. I went to a conference that my dad asked me to go to, and just it became very apparent that I needed to make some hard life choices and life changes. All the guys I ran around with, we grew up all the way through school together, and I just knew that I made the decision to change. God was working in me, but they didn't have that same revelation, So it was hard for me to walk that line of being a Christian and doing the right thing when my surroundings were the same. So that was part of the reason why we moved to Monroe too, is that I needed a fresh start, and I needed to make those tough decisions, and that's a huge part of the reason why I moved. I could have drove back and forth from Oski, but it was kind of a twofold thing. And it really, I guess the big life change came when I had a motocross accident in 2003 and shattered my leg. Ended up having, the first year I had, I think, 4 surgeries the first year. The first couple orthopedic surgeons wouldn't try to put it back together. They wanted to amputate. And so we found a guy that would try to put it Humpty Dumpty back together, and he was very confident that he could do that. It was also a great time for me because I couldn't, in my personal growth in faith, I couldn't physically do anything. I mean, I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. My leg was in a halo for a while, trying to figure out what they were gonna do. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like financially? You know, I mean, I can't pay any bills. I was off work for a year, but God provided those things, and it was just really a time for me to trust Him, to trust God. I can't fix any of this, but God can. And a huge personal growth spiritually in my walk with the Lord because I turned to Him instead of alcohol and all those things I used to do before.
Mm-hmm. So the first kind of step for you in that journey, I guess, was changing your environment? Yeah.
The first step was definitely changing the people I hung out with. They're all good. They were all good guys. You know, they just didn't have the same direction in life. You know, I was married and I had kids and I was acting like a college student. I just never grew up. And I knew it was time to be a better husband and a better father. Like, what am I teaching my kids? Am I teaching them that you need to run around and do whatever you want to do and leave your family to just do whatever, you know? Or am I going to be a dad, be a husband, in a godly way? So that was a big change for me. Mm-hmm. There's been tons of steps along the way. You know, you look back on life. I'm 56, and I look back and I see, you know, several big steps in my faith walk. Several steps forward and several steps back at times. You know, sometimes I lose sight of what I need to be doing. And sometimes, you know, we make decisions that aren't great, and you can look back and like, oh yeah, I really screwed that one up, you know. That's part of the growth process, I think, in our walk with Christ.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting how it takes like a big life event to happen, for something big to change in your life.
It takes, you know, depending on people's personalities, there are things, you know, where some people can see those things right away and make those changes right away. And I'm just like I'd been really stubborn and really selfish. And God really had to knock me upside the head and break me physically for me to allow Him in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The second point I was going to make was like looking back on whoever's life it is, whether it's yourself or whoever, but you can kind of see those steps and how God has placed you in certain times. And
God puts us in those places and we don't really see them at the time sometimes. But you look back and you're like, okay, God was really laying that out. And I couldn't see it when I was going through it, but I really see it now. And, you know, for me, I was just, like I said, did whatever I wanted to do. But now my focus is not what I want to do. My focus is really being obedient to God. Like, all right, God, I screwed this whole life up, and that was on me. But you've got a plan. What have I got to lose? My life, I kept screwing up. What have I got to lose?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to trust you. So.
Yeah, it's that surrender.
Absolutely.
Peace.
And it took physical pain for me to get to that point. When I was laying in the hospital bed wondering whether I'm losing my right ankle and foot, the only thing I could think of was, man, I'm glad I don't have to go to work today. And even that, just all those things that you don't really notice until literally your feet are held to the fire,
Yeah. Yep. So I guess a little backstory about Rodd and I. I moved to Monroe in May of 2021, which is almost been 3 years ago, and I think Rodd was like one of the first few people that my wife and I met, and we started getting involved with the community, and then started asking around people in the community if they knew of any office spaces in Monroe. And I asked Rodd, and he said that there was an office space uptown right next to his that was available. So I found out. He gave me the contact information of who owned the building, contacted them. So now I office out of there, and we get to see each other basically every single day.
Yeah.
Through that, and then we're also neighbors. So
yeah,
really we don't can't really get away from each other, I guess. But yeah, I guess as far as your SkyQuest in the ministry, what are your future mission, goals, plans for that? And I guess what do you see that looking like in the future?
Yeah, so when I took over this job, there was nobody that had done it full time. So that was kind of, it was a hard start because what do I do? As a ministry, we had $2,100 in the bank, and they asked me to quit my job and do this full time, So I started raising support, like a missionary would. Tons of people in the community in the area have been very generous to help me get going on this. One of the things as a ministry, we wanted to add more trips instead of just doing 2 turkey hunts. So that's probably a big goal of the ministry, is just keep adding stuff, different events and different trips. And the second thing that I knew I wanted to start a Bible study in Monroe, and I didn't really see that as a big impact. For me, that was just kind of the main goal of the ministry, was to do big events. But the Bible study has really been a huge blessing. We started out with just a few guys, and now we do that on Tuesday nights at 6:30, and there's just tons of guys that come in from the community. I think that's another area that we need to really look at as an organization on, is how do we grow that? We're kind of full. I mean, we've got a lot of guys coming to that. So then it's like, well, do we add another one? Do we add another night? Do we add a morning Bible study? Those are a couple of things that as a ministry that we talked about. One of the huge things that I didn't even see coming at all was just spending time with people. I get tons of phone calls, tons of visits. I spend most of my time just meeting with people that are kind of in the same, maybe they're in the same place that I was years ago. Maybe they've got a faith walk, but not real committed. Maybe life's just upside down, whether that's marriage or whether that's work or family or fill in the blank. We all have chaos in our life from time to time. And just really spending time listening to people and helping them walk through that stuff. I've made a ton of bad decisions in my life, and hopefully I've learned from those, and I'm just trying to use those in a better way. I've made a lot of mistakes. Hopefully I don't make those same mistakes. Maybe you or maybe somebody else might be walking in those same shoes. I'm like, hey, I know exactly what you've been through because I did that. That was me for a long time. Well, let's take a look and see what God would have us to do to change that. Let's look to him for guidance. We tend to seek advice from people that are in the same group. A lot of times that's not good advice. So just trying to point people towards God when life is sideways instead of our normal thing where, maybe life's sideways and my way out is to drink too much or whatever that might be. But I spent a lot of time just visiting with people. One of my favorite quotes is, are you listening to understand? Or are you listening to reply? Mm-hmm. So giving those people time to talk and just listen to understand where their heart is and what's really going on instead of just overwhelming them with a lot of other stuff. Like just a lot of times just people need somebody they can talk to that doesn't have a dog in the fight. So that's another area that I spend a lot of time doing, and I really enjoy that, just getting to know people and trying to help them avoid some of the mistakes that I made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess just to kind of wrap things up here, what is, if you had to give some piece of advice to someone that's listening right now, whether they're just starting, to get into their faith journey, or they're 20 years into it, or if it's about business or family or whatever, just some piece of advice. And then you kind of mentioned it earlier, but how can people reach you and contact you?
I'd just say seek godly advice. The world just points us towards the wrong thing a lot of times, and we end up kind of in a fishbowl and just swimming around in the same thing all the time. But be intentional on who's in your inner circle. We all have friends, and we all have different hobbies, different everything, but put somebody in your inner circle that is going to hold you accountable and help you walk in the right direction instead of just patting you on the back and saying, hey, everything's okay. Put somebody in your inner circle that's going to point you in the right direction. Yeah, our website's SkyQuest Outdoor Ministries.com, and my phone number's on there. And like I tell everybody, I'm available 24/7. I don't care if it's 2:00 in the morning. If life is sideways, I'd rather have you call me at 2:00 in the morning than read your name in the obituary the next day. So.
Yep. So, cool. Good deal. I appreciate you coming on and having the conversation.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. Yep. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us beneath the surface. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for future episodes.